what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
In the Carolinas, the debate always continues between Eastern and Western. Your choice for the best depends on personal preference, but when it comes to geography, you can't get much further down east than Emerald Isle. That's where Brandon Shepard and his family have a corner on the barbecue market. Sure, you may find barbecue in Hatteras, Morehead City, or any other place along the coast, but on Emerald Isle, Shepard's Barbecue is the only game in town. And thanks to a national spotlight from the Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, the barbecue joint in this busy beach town draws a crowd in the high season and adds extra hours for the locals during the off times. In this episode of the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, we continue our Carolina Pitmaster series, saluting the Pitmasters participating in the Carolina Barbecue Festival. I talked to Brandon Shepard about his business, his growing relationship with Guy Fieri, and his own barbecue roots. No surprise, it's all about whole hog and Eastern-style barbecue. But that doesn't mean Brandon always sticks to his roots. He's inclined to step outside the box with his barbecue, and you can bet his menu for the Carolina Barbecue Festival will be unlike anything else up for the tasting. Enjoy this conversation with Brandon live from his restaurant along the North Carolina coast, and find out more about his business at shepardbarbecue.com. That's SHEPARD barbecue.com. And be sure to follow Shepard Barbecue on Instagram for a glimpse of all the good stuff Brandon's cooking down east. Excited to have with us today Brandon Shepard from Shepard Barbecue. Brandon, welcome to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show.
I appreciate you having us. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely excited to have you here. So let's just jump right into it, Brandon. First, tell me where you're from originally and how did you get into smoking meat low and slow?
I'm actually from here in our area, pretty much. Swansboro is right next to Jacksonville. Not a lot of people have heard of it. It's a real small town. Most of my family's grown up here all their lives. And I think what got me into barbecue the most was whether it was family get-togethers or it was my grandfather, who he was kind of one of those guys like myself, very quiet, very laid back, very silent. But one of the things that would get him talking was, what he was doing outside. If it wasn't carpentry work, it was cooking whole hogs, or he was collards or anything outside. He loved live fire cooking, so that was kind of our way of bonding. So I think that's what got me into it the most.
Yeah, I definitely hear a lot of people talk about that, other generations bringing them into it and you're kind of watching them as you grow up. And you say from around here, that's way down east on the eastern shore of North Carolina around Jacksonville and specifically in Emerald Isle, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think we're as far eastern North Carolina barbecue as you can get. I mean, it's far that a lot of people come down to the beach and they're used to it's seafood's king around here, is what they say. So, I mean, they come down here, find a barbecue spot that does, live fire, and it's kind of something that's out of the way, but.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so how long have you been doing it professionally as a pitmaster? You've probably been cooking for a long time with granddad and other family members, but how long has it been a business for you?
Professionally, actually, we started in 2020.
Okay.
So it was a whirlwind. We had another business at the time, which was possibly as far away from barbecue as possible. We thought the island needed something, juice bar, with Kobe bowls and stuff like that. I've always been in the restaurant business, so I've cooked all kinds of things. And we had a couple different concepts for things, and barbecue has always been something that I was definitely going to get back to, but it just wasn't at that time. And then COVID hit, and as you know, the world kind of got flipped on its head.
Oh, yeah.
We were trying to find ways of keeping the business alive. And I kept telling my wife, look, I've been wanting to, actually start this whole family barbecue thing for a minute. I think we should do it. And she was kind of hesitant. And that's when we kind of got to the point where it was like, a lot of families were looking for something that could feed the whole family. It was a situation of what can we get? Everyone sit down. And I kind of figured barbecue was the answer for us. I mean, so it was, I think it was more of a pivot at the time because I always told myself, I don't know if I can actually do something like this as a living just because I love it. You know what they say, once you kind of start trying to make money at something, it can get a little difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, you can stop loving it, right? When it becomes a job, it's not quite as fun, right? Yeah. Okay. So, you mentioned on Emerald Isle, that's where you're at, and you kind of alluded to this before, but are there any other barbecue restaurants on Emerald Isle?
No, it is us in the middle of seafood.
Yeah. So you got a kind of a quarter on the market, right?
You would think so. I mean, coming out here, it's like everyone's looking for seafood, then they kind of find, this kind of barbecue situation that is kind of out of the way. So, I mean, we've slowly been gathering that business and catching a lot of attention. So, we're starting to get there. We're actually bringing a whole new aspect into, I guess, the whole beach living.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, you go to the beach and you're down there a week or two during the summer, and then, I mean, you got to get a little bit tired of seafood, right? You can't have shrimp po' boys and snapper and all that good stuff every day. You got to get something cooked over the fire and some of that pork barbecue like we love around Carolina.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, we are tending to be a kind of a break for all that. So, I mean, it's something we've been pushing for, and it's working out so far.
Well, tell me this: what would somebody experience when they come to Shepherd Barbecue? Tell me what that's like. What are they going to see? What are they going to smell? What will they experience when they come to your business?
The first thing, you're definitely going to smell it. I mean, because right there we're cooking, with wood, all wood barbecue. So that's the first thing you're going to do is smell it. But when you come to us, I think you're going to find a family oriented based restaurant. I mean, it's a small kind of town, so everyone knows everybody. And then when the tourists do come in, they actually get to see, a smiling face. First thing you do when you come in, you meet my wife. She loves greeting people. She's a definite people person. And then there we are, right there cooking. And I think what separates us a little bit from most people is since we are so small. I mean, everything from trimming the meat, to cooking the meat, to slicing it, to smoking it. I'm doing everything. So you kind of actually get to meet the owners and see what we're all about.
Yeah, that's definitely a cool experience. So, but you're only open on the weekend, Friday and Saturday, right? Or until you run out. Why the choice just to keep it to the weekend?
Well, actually, that's down here. It works a little crazy. There's you have your on season, and then you
Uh
have
huh.
your off. Over here, mass majority of the businesses actually closed down. So for the locals, they don't actually get a real opportunity to, I don't know, try us out because the lines get so long. So they're like, oh man, they kind of hunker down and wait for the storm to roll over. So we like to stay open during the winter time just so those people can actually get to try it and they come back in. But during the on season, we are Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Okay, right on. Well, that's cool. So you're a little bit longer there in the on season. So back to kind of about the restaurant. What do you feel like your specialty is?
I get asked that a lot. I mean, funny enough, I know we're Eastern North Carolina barbecue, but we do push very hard for the brisket. I guess around here, it's not something that's seen a lot. I mean, it is so, I guess, barbecue forward. Or see, there's the Eastern North Carolina side coming out. It's so
Yeah.
cool forward and whole hog that we we try to offer people. I don't know, something a little different. I mean, I've had people come in and say, "What's the difference between brisket and pulled pork?" And it's like, well, one's beef. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
so it's been cool trying to introduce that a little bit.
Yeah, and we're definitely, as we talked to some of the other pitmasters, really starting to see brisket become more and more popular across the state. Even down east where you're at, a lot of other folks are bringing brisket on, and that's gaining a lot of popularity. Would you say that it's a fan favorite on your menu, the brisket, or is there something else that's most popular among your audience?
I would definitely say brisket right now is a fan favorite, but one thing we've been asked about a lot, and one thing we've definitely been focusing on, was actually bringing kind of whole hog into the program. As you know, Eastern North Carolina, it's famous for whole hog, and
Mm.
North Carolina as well. But Lexington is a little different, but one thing we've noticed is a lot of whole hog places are slowly starting to dwindle away. And one thing we're all about kind of is just tradition and technique. In Eastern North Carolina, it's just not Eastern North Carolina barbecue without a whole hog. And I think we'd be doing kind of a disservice to the name and just the area without trying to implement it. So that's one thing that we're trying to get into now with buying a couple BBQs and things like that to keep that whole thing alive because some of the barbecue restaurants in North Carolina, I mean, without the younger guys, they're starting to get up there in age, and it would be a shame to watch that dwindle away. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
looking now, Texas is really starting to push the whole hog game, and
Oh.
yeah, man, if we were to kind of step back on that, I think that would be a disservice to everyone in our area.
Yeah, definitely keeping a tradition alive that goes back to, like you said, the live fire, but also, sort of a heritage piece there for Eastern North Carolina. That's cool that you guys are keeping that alive. You mentioned it's a really family and atmosphere. How else would you feel like your barbecue business is a part or maybe different from other barbecue restaurants? Not just on Emerald Isle where there's not many others, but if you look towards Greenville or Wilmington or even back towards, Peachland or some of those guys, how is your business different?
I think the one of the things that separate us, I guess, from there's we've been labeled like some of the other guys, like Lawrence Barbecue and some of the younger guys as New Age Barbecue,
Hmm.
where we're too many. I think it's focusing a lot on sides as well, and kind of getting creative in that aspect, and then just getting creative with some of the specials. But other than that, man, I mean, we try to stick to the basics and try to stick to technique, and it's more technique forward than anything. There's no real secrets to anything we're doing, anything like that. So
Yeah, cool. Well, I want to talk for a few minutes now about the Carolina Barbecue Festival, and we're definitely excited to partner with those guys. And I know you're going to be among 14 pitmasters there at the festival this year, April 5th and 6th. How did you get hooked up with the Carolina Barbecue Festival and Lewis Donald and all those guys?
we, especially when starting, we kind of went around to a lot of the other places. And of course, just I'm always been a fan of barbecue, but I do a lot with a lot of Charlotte chefs
Hmm.
and getting into the barbecue game. I mean, a lot of guys are very close knit and starting to get closer in our area. So you just kind of meet each other, whether it's through social media or through another friend. And I've known Lewis Donald for a good while now, and as soon as I heard what he's doing, I was all about it because I mean, North Carolina's been needing something like that, or the Carolinas in general have been needing something like that for a while. So
Yeah.
happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, telling the truth, depending on how far and which path you take, you're looking at about 300 miles, 5 hours or so to get from Emerald Isle to Charlotte. So apart from knowing Lewis and feeling like the state needs something, why do you participate in the festival?
I mean, honestly, for me, festivals are one of the. I mean, I have the most fun there. I mean, of course, you love serving your daily customers and you love caterings and all that kind of stuff. But festivals, it's more about. I feel like meeting new people and also kind of getting together with all your barbecue community, meeting all the other guys in the restaurant, and just it's more of a camaraderie thing and just laying back and enjoying it. There's no rush. There's just kind of having fun with it, and it gets back to sitting back and family barbecues and things like that, and just talking to people. So
Yeah, and it's a family of pitmasters as you guys get together, right? Yeah, that's cool. So again, it's a long trip. What kind of preparations required to make that kind of trip? What kind of equipment are bringing, and what do you do to get ready to make the drive?
normally up there, that's when it goes back to that barbecue camaraderie thing, and it's just me, guys in the area. It's like, look, man, we've got a long drive. We're not sure exactly how to move some of this. If it's not, the trusted Yeti coolers, then we're talking to guys and borrowing pits. I mean, Lewis Donald, he's always been like once again a good friend, and anything if I was ever in that area and needed help, he was the first guy to do it. So if ever I'm loaning a pit from him we're actually hauling ours down there. We're making it happen some way.
Yeah. Well, so for this year, what are you going to be taking to the festival? What are you serving up to the masses out there?
As tradition for us, we still don't know. we're I'm one of those guys. I mean, unfortunately, that I kind of overthink things sometimes, and it's like, oh, I want to do this, oh, I want to do that, and it's just kind of what we think would be most exciting for the group, and trying to hear what some of the other guys are bringing, just so we can kind of mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. Let it be a surprise. See what other people are bringing. Bring something different or your own spin on theirs, right?
Yeah, we always want to try to wow people as much as possible. So it's taking us a little time, but we'll have something ready.
Yeah. What'd you bring last year?
Last year we actually did Cochinita Pibil. It's a taco based from the Yucatan.
Hmm.
So actually marinated pork butts in achiote paste and a bunch of citruses and things like that. We smoked them off, then we wrapped them in banana leaves. We popped them back into the smoker, and the banana leaves get this really nice herbaceous taste to it. After that, we broke them down. We made a habanero salsa. Did some pickled red onions, like some escabeche. We did on a flour, or actually on a corn tortilla. It it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. That's one thing we don't shy away from when we get to the festivals. I mean, some things take a little more time, but I mean, it's all for the customers. So.
Yeah, it's worth it because they're going to remember you, right? And I was looking through your Instagram page, and it looks like you kind of experiment with a lot of different things out there. Cubano style ribs, and you got smoked pork belly, and smoked brisket and chorizo chili. What kind of inspires you when you're coming up with some of these unique recipes?
I think it's from our past experience in the whole food truck industry. We used to have a food truck called Urban Street Eats. Like I said, just kind of doing the chef thing, and I was all about global street food. So messing around with that, I think it's kind of helped us branch out a little bit. And also, if you really look into food's history, every culture has some kind of form of barbecue.
Hmm.
So I mean, we try to kind of play off of that a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of a fusion of global food culture and Carolina barbecue. Yeah, cool. So I know that you've gone to the Carolina Barbecue Festival. Any other kind of festivals that you participate in? I ask that because it looks like you got a trip coming up in February to Miami, and you think 300 miles to Charlotte's a long drive, but Emerald Isle to Miami, now that's going to be a heck of a trip. How'd you get involved with that?
That was actually through Guy Fieri. We were on the whole Triple D
Hmm.
experience, and we got connected with him, and he brought us out to California to do the Stagecoach Festival. I was with Pat Martin, Adam Perry Lang, and we had a couple other people out there. So through that, just kind of talking to him and sitting down, and he said any kind of festival. He's like, if I could ever bring you guys along, he was like, you guys are definitely coming. It's been kind of building a relationship with him. So Food Network puts on the Sobe Fest, and of course, I mean, with him being down there, they kind of asked us if we'd go, and we're all about it. It is a little daunting trying to figure out the logistics for this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my friends in Miami, but we definitely better make some soon, or else it's a long haul with the smokers up there.
Yeah, for sure. While we're on the topic of Triple D and Guy Fieri, tell me what was that experience like having them at your business and kind of going through that? What was that like for you guys?
It was amazing, man, from start to finish. I remember my wife and I were in the car. We were going to Lowe's to pick up some stuff for the business. Try to because, like I said, when I tell you like family business, we've painted the place, we've done everything to the place.
Yeah.
So picking up some things to kind of work on the business, and I was skimming through emails, and I was like, look at this, and it was an email from Food Network saying we want to get you guys on the show and stuff like that, and we kind of laughed about it, but then we were like, well, let's check this out, and we started checking out things, fact checking and whatnot, and sure enough, it was the real deal, and we got connected with him. It was a long process of vetting and checking people out, and they one day called us and said, you guys are going to be up there, and it happened like that because they were like, oh, by the way, basically we're going to be out here in 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So we prep and rush and get the business is show ready as possible. And I mean, when from the moment he actually came out, it was kind of nerve wracking a little bit because I watched the show growing up.
Uh-huh.
You know, watched it and I was always a fan of it. And then it's like, wow, I mean, he's actually going to be right here in the business. So you get a little starstruck, but I mean, he came out, he talked to us. He was one of the most down to earth people I've ever met. I mean, of course, one thing you worry about when meeting, I guess, celebrities and whatnot is, are they going to be the person that you see on TV?
Yeah.
And
Hey everybody, John Reep here, and I'm with Lauren Weaver of the Hickory Smokehouse, and we have partnered up and we have come up with what we think is the best barbecue sauce in the world. It's called John Reep's Hickory Smokehouse South in Your Mouth Barbecue Sauce. But don't just take our word for it. Listen to what other chefs are saying. So this holiday season, reap the benefits, sop it up, let your taste buds rise again, and put a little South in your mouth.
We got it in hot, too.
Yeah. Thanks, Lauren.
from start to finish, I mean, we ended up doing a second television show of his family reunion. So we ended up catering for his family reunion. We met his whole family, and after the show, he sat us down with his family when the cameras were all gone. I mean, we probably sat down with him for probably a good 4 hours. I mean, just talking and getting to know each other, and he gave me all kinds of connections, hooked me up with, introduced me to Pat Martin, to Adam, and all these guys. And he's just been, over the time, a real, I guess, integral part in helping us, kind of grow the business, whether it's me asking him a business question or him inviting us out somewhere and just to have fun and let loose. So it's been great, man.
Wow, that's really cool. I'm really glad to hear that. He's a human being. He's a down to earth person. He's willing to help people that are getting out in the world, not just shining a spotlight on you for the big TV, but genuinely wanting to try to help you and promote your business and help you get to be a better cook, pitmaster, whatever. How do you feel like the response has been since you appeared on TV and you've started that relationship with you?
Man, it's been night and day. When we first started, we were doing pretty well. I mean, we were having some sellout days here and there. It was really good, but I mean, I remember him telling me, he was like, "Are you guys, ready for this?" And he was like, we were like, "Yeah." I wasn't sure exactly what the show would produce afterwards, but talking to a good friend, Chris Prado, he was like, "Have you ever heard of the Triple D effect?" And I'm like, I'm not sure. I mean, I keep hearing this every now and then, but as soon as the show, I mean, actually before the show aired, people start kind of getting word, and I mean, it was lines out of the door. It's just when we started, it was just me and my wife, and we had one other person, and I mean, it was so crazy. I mean, I could not imagine the response that it was going to get. And we've been blessed ever since. And so far, ever since then, it's been just lights out. So
Yeah, wonderful. So that's cool. It delivered a good response for you guys and a positive experience all the way around. I want to talk a little bit more about your family, Jules, and some of that background. But first, let's talk a little bit about your recipe. And I know we don't have a recipe per se from you, but you've got something that's probably a little bit more important, especially when it comes to brisket and backyard barbecuers. And as you said, brisket's becoming more and more popular across the state. And I want you to talk to me a little bit about what are some tips for making a really good brisket. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, and it's definitely not easy to do right. But how do you cook a brisket and get great flavor, great bark, great color, the whole 9 yards? What does it take?
Well, that's one of the things we kind of preach the most is we don't really have, and a lot of people don't quite believe us because barbecue guys are we all like to hide our secrets, but we actually don't really have any secrets, and we'll tell people all the time, they're like, what kind of wood do you guys use? What kind of this do you use? And really, it's all about technique. I mean, we're believe it or not that salt and pepper, barbecue place. And I guess the number one question we're always asked is, like you said, how do you develop flavor? How do you develop bark? And all these kind of questions. And I mean, the best thing I can tell people is it all starts with the preparation. That's where you're actually building the best product. I mean, whether it's coming down to, we actually like to start with a dry cure, which is basically seasoning up and letting it sit overnight, letting those flavors soak into it. And then that's when it's actually getting your flavor later on down the road. Brisket is a real thick piece of meat, and it's kind of hard to actually get that to penetrate. So we tell people a lot of times, I mean, if you got the time to actually start ahead of time, definitely start a day, ahead of time. The next process would probably be the best thing for your color is actually we kind of almost cold smoke our briskets first. So we're actually putting in a couple of hours where it's just heavy smoke. It's not dirty smoke, but it's heavy smoke. And by that time, when we're actually jumping it up a little bit, around 225, almost even as high as 250, we've actually already developed a good bark on it. And then next, a lot of people like to focus on, the dreaded stall, which it's not really so much of a, I guess, a thing as a lot of backyard guys would like to think. Because I mean, we've all been told that every book you read, it's always that stall. We're actually, now that we've got our bark, we're actually looking to make sure where a lot of videos will tell you, we're feeling around for the brisket. You're actually looking for rendered fat next, or not even thinking about wrapping anything at that point in time. So after you've knocked out those two, that's when you can actually start to look at wrapping things. I mean, you got guys like Goldies where they don't wrap at all. They cook straight through, and as soon as it's coming off, they're actually wrapping. So I tell a lot of people the wrapping is kind of a secondary thing for us. It's more just so we can kind of retain moisture a little bit. Just take your time, and as it's called, low and slow. I mean, have some patience, develop that bark, render that fat, and then that's when you need to actually start to think about wrapping. And then, of course, then you got the big rest, which definitely rest your briskets. I can't tell people that enough. I mean, I remember when I first had my first brisket, I did not rest the thing. I was like, oh man, this is going to be amazing. It comes out, it's tough, it's horrible. I mean, that was many briskets ago, but I mean, you still remember that first one. So I would definitely tell people follow those kind of techniques and take your time. Don't rush it. If you're willing to buy that brisket, just remember keeping your head. I got some hours ahead of me and go for it.
Yeah, some hours ahead, including that curing ahead of time and the cold smoking, and then wrapping it and then letting it rest. Don't go cutting it and letting it squeezing the juice out for Instagram. That's no good for anybody.
People love to do that for the Instagram things, but every time I see it, it's like, please don't do that. But as far as the secret recipes go, I think now with barbecue being such I guess a social media driven thing. I mean, every secret's been put out that you can think of. Every sauce has been made. I mean, so many crazy things that I think the only thing people are starting to miss and not pay attention to is back to the basics, back to the technique.
Yeah, it's tried and true tradition for a reason because it works, right? All these generations it's worked because it works. Well, let's go kind of a little bit more back into the family jewels and what we call secret time here on the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, even though it's not really any secrets. But tell me, what do you enjoy most about being a pit master and running a barbecue business?
Man, I think there's a few things that really, kind of made me ask, like, why did I wait to do this so long? I think for one, like I said before, that kind of sense of community. Growing up, doing the whole, straight chef thing where, saute this and that can be a very cutthroat business for some reason. Guys are all about kind of, I guess, rising in the rank a little bit. And when it comes down to barbecue, I've never met just a group of people that were so willing to help, especially me, kind of getting into the business and answering as many questions as possible. I mean, one of the first people I talked to was Matt Register out there. I mean, he was amazing. I mean, everything. I've never met, a nicer person than that. Then, I mean, you had Anthony Bernardino from Swig and Swine out there in South
Hmm.
Carolina. Every time I asked a question, he was there. I mean, Brian Fern, he's another guy. That's one aspect that I love. It's almost like it's a brotherhood. I mean, anybody you can think of, I mean, they're normally willing to help in any way possible. And then I think another thing was, I guess, the connection with the customer and the rest of the community. I got everybody from we used to have this customer come in, and it was the kid. He loved barbecue. His name was Clifford. I mean, he would come in, he'd get the biggest smile on his face, and he's like, "I want brisket. I want this." His family loved to come to us, and actually they were getting barbecue for him. I mean, this little guy was probably like maybe 4 years old. And then we had people all the way up to I think she had to be like around 80 or so. She comes in and she's kind of hanging around, and then finally she comes up and she's like, "I have a question to ask you." And we're like, "Yeah, sure. What's up?" And she's like, "Can I actually go out back and see your smokers?" And we're like, "Yeah, of course." And she's showing us all these pictures of pork nuts that she's cooked and brisket that she's done, and it I guess the best part about it is whether you're young or I mean you're a little older, everybody loves barbecue in some way, and everyone's normally able to connect with it because it's been in everyone's family in some form or manner. So I think it just being such a thing of people gathering and getting together and sharing stories, sharing pictures, or just sharing recipes. I guess it's been really cool for us. So, and I mean, we couldn't ask for more than that. Especially something you get up, you put so many hours into, you put like everything you got into it, and then you got customers that kind of show that love back, and it makes it all worth it for us. So.
Yeah, that's really cool, and it's love all the way around. Whether you're the pit masters with other pit masters, or your audience of diners and barbecue lovers out there in the world, not really competition. It's more of a community, right? So, what do you feel like it takes to be successful to run a barbecue restaurant?
I would definitely say a love for the business. I heard something you guys said before, which when I was listening to your podcast, that I mean, about people, if you love it, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Barbecue definitely is not that. I mean, definitely if you love it, you're going to have to work, but it helps you, I mean, get through those dog days. In every business, it's not always sunshine. Some days you have some rough days, and I think being so passionate about it's helped us get through those days to the point to right now where, I mean, we've seen the national television thing. We've been in write ups. We've had all this fun, met all these different people. I think that's definitely what does it for us. I mean, if it wasn't for just the straight passion that we've had for it, I don't know where we'd be at now.
Yeah, in all that, and you've had a lot of big moments, and you mentioned Matthew Register and Brian Furman, and those two guys, among others, that are going to be at the barbecue festival. We've had Matthew on the podcast before. What do you feel like the most important moment in your barbecue experience has been? What's been like something that you're always going to say, "Yeah, man, that's it. That's when I knew we were there."
I think it goes back to a story my grandmother told me. She one day my grandfather was outside. He was working. He was doing something, and she kind of asked him. She was like, "What are you doing?" And he was building a sign, and he was putting it in the front yard, and it was said Shepard Incorporated or something like that.
Huh?
And she kind of laughed at him, and she was like, "What is this about? You take that down. It's silly." And he basically told her, he was like, "Look," he was like, "one day, I promise you, you're gonna see this last name in lights." And he's like, "I don't know if it's gonna be from me or if it's gonna be from somewhere down the road. I promise you'll see it." And one day, we're kind of sitting here, and I was just thinking, and we ended up seeing, our name on TV and this and that, and it just something kept resonating with that, and it was, I guess, it's just bringing a little something back to our family name and just saying that, hey, we pushed hard and we grew up in this area and we were able to establish something we can kind of say is ours. So
Yeah, so maybe someday you'll see your name in lights, and it won't be Johnny Be Good tonight, but Shepard, Shepherd Barbecue. That name is in lights. Yeah. So, what do you feel like the best thing you've ever made is?
uh, hmm, I think honestly, I don't know. I mean, it would have to go back to it was it probably a Cuban sandwich. I mean, I love those, and
Yeah.
it's put a kind of a different spin on it, being everything smoked aspect. But other than that, I think it goes back to the brisket. I'm kind of a brisket head, so
Yeah. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Again, you mentioned Matthew and Brian Furman. When you're looking for advice, and Sweet Lewis Donald, who do you turn to for advice? Is it just one person, or do you go to a lot of different people?
man, there's such a long list that I mean I can turn to. I guess it always depends on what question I have,
Mhm.
and there's always somebody there willing to help you. And I've always told people myself, I mean, if there's anything I can help with, I will. And if I can't, then I'll point to someone who can. So I think it definitely kind of depends on the question.
Yeah, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. Now you got a great database to pull from too in all these events that you're in. So when you're looking around and not maybe looking for advice, but when Brandon Shepard's going for barbecue, what's your favorite North Carolina barbecue restaurant, and where is it, and why is that your favorite? Or do you go to barbecue when you're not working?
Oh, I mean, I'll say, I guess my favorite right now, for the moment, I mean, I would probably say Grady's. I mean, my first time, we went there actually for my first time not too long ago. I mean, I've always been a huge supporter of theirs. Just, it's been that family owned business
Hmm.
for the time. I mean, they are still in there to this day, still pushing it as much as they can. And I guess because it brought me back to childhood. When I went in there and I tasted it, it was that kind of transportation back to that. And
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing with food is the ones that can bring those memories back. So I would have to say Grady's. I mean, it's definitely my top favorite right now.
Well, you're in good company with that. A lot of folks have that as their favorite. So, Brandon, you've been very generous with your time. I've enjoyed talking with you, but we're going to wrap it up here with our low and slow showdown. And these are kind of quick hitters, and I may get a little bit more out of you if I can, but we're just going to jump right into it. So, what's your favorite, gas, charcoal, pellets, or wood? Wood all day, live fire on the wood. So, what's your favorite wood?
Pecan,
Wait a minute,
definitely.
what?
Pecan. Some people pecan
You
pecan.
mean pecan?
That is that. I knew it's that fight, but it's just. I mean, from the taste to the color to everything that. I mean, the way it burns. That is my all-time favorite. With close second being mesquite. A lot of guys don't like mesquite for. I think they think it's a little heavy-handed, but I love mesquite wood as well.
Yeah,
So.
mesquite's got a really strong distinct, whereas pecan's really pretty mild. I got a bunch of pecan trees in the yard, so it's easy for me to smoke on pecan. Love to do that. Is that what you guys are using there at Shepherd Barbecue, pecan?
We like to use that, and also we kind of a little bit of hickory. We kind of blend a little bit.
Okay, cool. So pork, beef, chicken, or something else?
I know I talked a lot about brisket today, but I guess I wouldn't be too Eastern North Carolina if I said that's not like my go-to. Brisket, I think I like cooking the
Uh-huh.
most. I mean, when it comes down to whole hog, I mean, you just can't beat it.
Yeah, can't beat it. So what is the best state in these United States for barbecue?
North Carolina. I know people love to say Texas, but I mean, we're still there.
Yeah, North Carolina. That's where it started here, right? So what is your favorite North Carolina barbecue style? Eastern, Western, Lexington, or South Carolina mustard?
Eastern North Carolina.
East.
I mean, I give them their due, but I don't think you get better than Eastern North Carolina barbecue. That vinegar sauce, I mean, come on.
Yeah, fair enough. So speaking of the sauce, is it better with or without?
You know, I actually, I'm one of those that like that hint of sauce. And then, I mean, that way you can taste the pork. And you can also taste, the sauce. But, because, I mean, that's what kind of separates all of North Carolina, really, anyways. A couple of us don't do the whole hog thing, but, I mean, it comes down to the different types of sauce. So, I think what mostly makes Eastern North Carolina, it is, besides the whole hog factor, is the sauce. So,
Yeah, so sauce with. And last, I lost my sign. Last one, and this is a tough one, I know. Is barbecue a verb or a noun?
I think when it comes down, I mean, a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but I think it's a verb, man. A lot of, these old school guys, they'll tell you right now, there's only one barbecue, and that's pork. That's not brisket. That's not ribs. It's nothing else. It is definitely, that's what barbecue is, but I think it's a verb.
Fair enough. And that is the final word, the lowdown on the Low and Slow Barbecue Show with Brandon Shepard from Shepard Barbecue in Emerald Isle. Brandon, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you guys.
You've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show on the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Be sure to visit us online at lowslowbbqshow.com. You can learn more about Shepard's Barbecue, the 2024 Carolina Barbecue Festival, and all the Pitmasters participating in this year's event. Among those, at lowandslowbbqshow.com, you can hear other podcasts in our Carolina Pitmaster series, including interviews with Ronald Simmons from Master Blend Family Farms, Matthew Register from Southern Smoke Barbecue of NC, and Garen Kirkman from John G's Barbecue in Peachland. If you like what you hear in the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, please follow us, subscribe in your favorite podcast stream, and we'd love it if you could give us a 5-star rating, and more than anything, share the show with your friends. Special thanks to Shepard Barbecue's Brandon Shepard. Thanks as well to our producer Andrew Moose and the whole team at the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Most especially, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Remember, for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.